You held me back when I tried to move on from your life. So you stole my life with clarity. So hold me back, now you're here. Cause I'm mad, show no fear. Wanna let you know just how it felt. Oh no, 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 no. Don't you think we're good? There's no way we could be. No, oh no, 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 no. I know the way you look at me, I know it too well. Now I'm bulletproof. You might find your gun, but I'm flying high. I'm bulletproof. Don't ever touch the ground. You can never bring me down. You can never bring me down. Can never bring me down. Cause I'm bulletproof. Yeah,
I had a planned flight from North Alabama to Montgomery for a weekend conference. Although this is typically only a 3.5-hour drive, flying would only take about an hour. In addition, the next day I had a planned trip back up to Nashville, which would be a long 6 to 7 hour drive as opposed to a 2.5-hour flight. There were widespread icing air mets throughout the Midwest, extending halfway between Huntsville and Birmingham, from the freezing level up to 13,000 feet. Below that was extensive low-level moderate turbulence. Although the SKU-T and forecasted ceilings for the area were between 5,000 and 6,000 feet, the METARs for the area were between 7,000 and 9,000 foot overcast. There were multiple PIREPs for icing in the area, some in Tennessee as low as 6,000 feet. However, all of the ones in North Alabama and south of me were between 9,000 to 10,000 feet. The cloud cover forecasts showed a broken area moving into the northern half of the state by noon. However, if I left early enough, I should be out from underneath this about halfway to Birmingham. There were stiff winds from the west throughout the entire route, which promised to make an interesting crosswind takeoff, but the runway alignment in Montgomery was directly into the forecast winds. Most of the route was predicting VFR with rising ceilings and clearing skies as I proceeded southward. Looking at the cross-section forecast in ForeFlight, this predicted icing at my planned altitude of 5,000 feet for most of the way, but this didn't jibe with the PIREPs or the observed ceilings. Because of this, I decided to look at the SKU-T graphs for a midpoint between Huntsville and Birmingham, where I expected to be at my planned cruise altitude. The GFS model suggested a freezing layer of clouds starting between 6,000 to 7,000 feet. The high rapid refresh model was not as confident, and the NAM model showed a bit lower at 5,000 feet, which I suspect is where ForeFlight was getting its prediction from. The RUC model soundings were predicting overcast starting around 5,000 feet at -5 Celsius, suggesting icing potential and extending up to around 10,000 feet, so it would be tough to top. The Aviation Weather Center forecast, however, showed the icing remaining in Tennessee and not dipping down into Alabama. I checked the map right before I took off. The lowest ceiling was around 5,500 foot MSL, and most of the remainder of the airports were reporting 7,000 to 8,000 feet MSL. My initial plan was to go at 5,000 feet, but right before takeoff, looking at the local ceilings and knowing they would raise over the route, I decided to go at 7,000 feet, both for fuel efficiency and to try to stay out of the lower level turbulence as much as possible. With extensive icing throughout the region, the planned flight would be a little bit dicey, but I did have multiple outs in my favor. The terrain was flat with MVAs in the 3,500 to 4,000 foot range, and the lowest cloud level was 5,000 feet at any point, plus the freezing levels around 4,000 to 5,000 feet as well, so I knew that I could always descend if things didn't look right. Plus, I was flying away from the weather into better weather conditions, albeit windy and gusty. Also, this is a route I fly often and know well, and there are multiple airports to deviate to if there was a problem. Unfortunately, the audio didn't pick up for this flight. However, I felt like this was a valuable learning flight, so you're going to have to suffer through a small bit of voiceover.
It's calling me like the rainbow. It's calling me like the rainbow. The rainbow.
The crosswind takeoff was uneventful. Ceilings in the 8,000 foot range, I decided to pick up my clearance in the air. I was given direct and climbed to 7,000 feet. There were multiple flights en route, reporting icing during descent to air traffic control between 12,000 and down to 8,000 feet. But the bases looked to be about 8,000 feet, so I thought my planned altitude of 7,000 feet would work out well. It was cold, minus 5 degrees Celsius, so I knew I didn't want to spend any significant amount of time in any clouds. The pitot heat was left on the whole flight, and I made sure the alternate air worked prior to departure. As I got south of Huntsville, about halfway to Birmingham, the ceiling started to lower a bit, so I was in and out of a fragmented, broken layer. At one point, I spent about 2 to 3 minutes in continuous cloud, at which time I could see the slightest trace of rime on the front of the GoPro on the wing, but none on the wing or the windshield itself. It was also starting to get quite a bit turbulent in the clouds, which was making it somewhat difficult. I did ask for a descent to 5,000 to get below, but Birmingham approach was busy and they didn't hear me. Just as I was about to call back up and request again, the clouds started to break up a bit more, and I could see areas of blue sky, so I decided to stay where I was.
You were the guy with your friends at the doorway, pretending that you had the time of your life. Had we met before, instant chemistry, I was so glad you came. Had we met before, laughing instantly, but it didn't feel like thunder or lightning, but something struck me when I was looking into your eyes. Wasn't love at first sight, of fire burning bright, but now I know what it was. It was like coming home.
The remainder of the flight was very turbulent and uncomfortable, although never dangerous. It didn't record, but I will tell you that my prediction for moderate to severe turbulence down to the surface was correct. I had to slow way down to keep it below penetration and maneuvering speed.
Still I was thinking we were just friends. Had we met before, instant chemistry, I was so glad.
I certainly would not have undertaken this flight with family or with inexperienced flyers on board, as this would not have been fun for them. As it was for me, I didn't enjoy it either, but it was utilitarian. I also would not have considered it if I didn't have multiple outs of lower altitudes below clouds, VFR, and multiple airports to divert to. Icing is definitely not something to play around with in light airplanes. I do wish the audio had worked for this flight, as there was a lot going on that would have added to the experience, but I felt like this was a great learning opportunity for others and decided to publish with the voiceover only anyway. Next time, I promise I'll be back to a better standard.
Had we met before?
next time, stay safe.